Chapter 18. Metro near Apollo Square, 1959. Hurrying out of the passage of the metro, Diane McClintock once more felt lost, though in fact she'd come here for a reason. She was here to find Atlas. Even so, she was overcome with the sensation of unsubstantiality, of being a mere ghost wandering a palace. Then, near a blockade at the entrance to Apollo Square, something caught her eye, a poster plastered to the metal wall. It asked, "Who is Atlas?" Just those 3 words, under a stylized, heroic image of a stoic, confident, clean-shaven man in rolled-up shirt sleeves and suspenders, fists on his hips, gazing with visionary intensity into the working man's future. The one time she'd seen him outside the cafe, he seemed like an ordinary man, good-looking, sturdy, but ordinary. Yet he was doing an extraordinary thing, risking Ryan's constables by engaging in flagrant altruism. At the very least, Atlas must be a charismatic man, someone who could inspire her, and her feeling of aimlessness. She turned to the bearded security sentry cradling a shotgun at a blockade, a burly, unshaven man in a work shirt and oil-spotted blue jeans. "Listen, could you tell me? I saw him once in Pauper's Drop, Atlas. He was passing out supplies. I'd like to talk to him. Maybe I could help. When I saw him in Pauper's Drop, She shook her head. I felt something." The sentry looked at her as if deciding whether or not she was sincere, then nodded. "I know what you mean, but I don't know if I could trust you." Diane looked around to see if anyone was watching. Then she took a wad of Rapture dollars out of her purse. "Please, it's all I could get a hold of today. I'll pay my way in, but I have to see him." He looked at the money, swallowed hard, then reached out, grabbed it, and hid it in an inside coat pocket. "Hold up right here." The bearded sentry turned and called out to another, older sentry. They spoke in low tones. The bearded sentry turned and winked at her. The older guards hurried off. The sentry went back to his post, whistling to himself. With one hand he gestured to her. "Wait." Then he proceeded not to see her. Had she thrown away her bribe? Maybe she'd thrown away her life. Spider splicers watched Apollo Square from high up on the walls. It was nippy, unevenly lit in Apollo Square tonight. There were dead men rotting not so far away. The smell made her feel sick. She was still slightly drunk, the space around her whirling as ever slowly, and she thought she might throw up if she had to smell the dead bodies much longer. But she wasn't leaving. She was going to stick around till the splicers got to her, or she got to see Atlas. If Ryan didn't want her, she decided maybe someone else would. A woman hurried up to the barricade. "Atlas says it's okay to see you, Miss McClintock," said the woman. Diane tried not to stare at the woman's scarred face. One of her eye sockets was covered by scar tissue. Her brown hair was matted. "Filio, you coming with us?" The shotgun-toting Filio nodded and gestured at Diane with the muzzle of the gun. "You going ahead of me." Diane thought about backing out, but she stepped through the scrapwood gate and followed them across Apollo Square to Artemis Suites. The one-eyed woman stepped over a low pile of trash in the doorway. Diane followed her into the reeking interior of the building, stomach lurching as she picked her way through moldy garbage. Diane entered a stairway that zigzagged up a graffitied concrete and steel shaft. They climbed 4 stories up, past drunks and groups of grubby children. Her escorts took her through a doorway and down a carpeted, burn-scarred hall. The little bushy-haired woman never hesitated, and Filio crumpled along behind Diane. The lights flickered out again. Lights might go out," Filio remarked, his voice a slow rumble. "Ryan's turned the power off in the building. We got some jury-rigged, but it ain't reliable." "I got a flashlight," said the woman. They came to another stairway, and, to Diane's bafflement, this time they went down. This stairway was relatively clean, occupied only by the occasional bored security sentry, scratching himself and nodding as they passed. Down and down they went, farther down than they'd gone up, down a subsequent passageway. Here, they passed under steam-shroud pipes, their feet splashing through puddles till they came to a small antechamber with a high, water-dripping ceiling. A securus door was guarded by a grinning, shivering splicer in a ratty sweater and torn trousers, toes sticking out of his decaying shoes. He had a hardcore splicer's red scrofula on his face and juggled 3 scythe-like fish-gut blades from his hand to hand. The curved blades hissed close to the naked light bulb on the ceiling, missing it by no more than a 1/4 inch. What's the extra bitch tattle tits? The splicer asked in a scratchy voice, never pausing and juggling the blades. McClintock, Atlas says she could go in. Says you, tittle-tattle tits. I'll fry your bits if it ain't it. Ah, go on in. The splicer stepped aside, still juggling, and little tittle-tattle tits opened the security door for them. Diane hurried through, eager to get past the splicer. They were in a lamplit utility area. Pipes and heating ducts came through the floor near the walls. The room was warm and smelled of cigarette smoke and mildew and brine. A cigarette was being smoked by a muscular man sitting casually behind a battered gray metal desk. On the desk was a tumbler and a gold cigarette box. It was he, the man she'd seen outside the cafe. He wore white, rolled-up shirt sleeves, just like in the poster. A good face, she thought, had seemed to emanate trustworthiness. Two shaggy bodyguards stood behind him. Near a ganglion had an unlit pipe dangling from the corner of his mouth. "I'll be Atlas," said the man in the desk, with an Irish lit, looking at her over an unsettling frankness. "Well, you're one of Ryan's birds." "I'm Diane McClintock. I worked for Mr. Ryan. I saw you helping people in Pauper's Drop, and it touched me. I don't feel good about the way things are going, and I just wanted to see if... What was it she wanted exactly? He smiled impishly. "I don't seem certain of what you wanted to see, Miss McClintock." She sighed and unconsciously brushed her hair into a place with her hand. "I'm tired. I had a few drinks, but I want to know more about you. I mean, you know, in a friendly way. I don't work with the constables. I've seen things, heard stories. I don't know what to believe anymore. I just know once I was passing by Apollo Square and I saw a woman coming over the barricades and one of them splicers working for Andrew." She didn't like to remember it. The woman hurrying along full of life one moment, the next the splicer had sent a ball of fire into her. She sizzled away into a blackened corpse, then steps of where Diane stood. Well, the splicer burned her, and the look on her face, like she was trying to tell me something. So tonight, she sighed, "I don't know. I'm just so tired right now." "Get the lady a chair, you great idiot," Atlas growled at Filio. Without a word, Filio brought a metal chair from a corner and Diane sat down. Atlas pushed the golden box across the desk toward her. "Cigarette?" "I'd adore one." She opened the box and took a cigarette, her hands trembling. Filio lit it for her, and she inhaled gratefully, then blew the silken smoke into the air. "This is a real cigarette. Virginia tobacco, in a gold box. You do yourself well for a revolutionary." Atlas chuckled. "Why, we took that from one of Ryan's little storerooms on the Rapture. Sure, he brought it in to sell in a little shop. A shop I used to sweep out once upon a time. I was maintenance, a janitor in Rapture. Come here when they sang me a pretty little lie. Promise of working in me trade. Ended up a janitor, and later couldn't find work doing even that." "What was your trade before?" "Well, I was a metal worker." He stepped out his cigarette. His fingers looked pale and soft for a workman. "As for what we took from that storeroom, we distributed most of it to the people. How do you think people eat round here with Ryan, the great son of Satan himself, cutting off supplies to Artemis, huh?" She nodded. "He's talked about an amnesty for people who give up the, what does he call it? The Bolshevik organizing?" "Bolshevik organizing? So we're Soviets now? Asking for a fair break is hardly that." She tapped the cigarette over an ashtray on the desk. "You sort of break his pinko stuff to Andrew," she sniffed. "I'm fed up with him. I've got no reason to love you people either. You could see what you did to me." She tossed the scars on her cheeks. He shook his head sadly. "You were in the fight, were you? A bomb. You're still a fine-looking woman, you are. You were too strong to die there. Why, you've got character from it. That's all to come about, Diane." He looked at her with that disarming frankness, and she wanted to believe in him. "Why do you call yourself Atlas? It's not your real name." "Figured that on your own, did you?" He grinned. "Well, Atlas takes the whole world on his shoulders. He's the broad back, ain't he? Who's the workman? The working man takes the world on his broad back too. Holds it out for the privilege for the likes of you." He opened a drawer and, to her astonishment, took out a bottle of what looked like actual Irish whiskey. Jameson. "Care for a hair of the dog, maybe? Filio, find you some glasses." They drank and talked of politics and fairness and organizing and reappropriation of goods for the working class. And you think you're the liberator of the working class, Atlas? I'm no liberator. Liberators don't exist. That's the only thing Ryan was right about. These people will liberate themselves, but they do need someone to tell them that it can be done. He toyed with the glass. Then he said, "You know about the little sisters, don't you? What they do to them poor little orphan wives." "I've heard. Yes, it bothers me, if that's what you're wondering." He poured her a third drink. "Sure, it should be bother you," he said solemnly, lighting another cigarette. "She'll cut you up inside. I've got a little girl myself, you know. Thought of them bastards maybe getting a hold of that child. Oh, the thought. But it will stop anyone from buying at him. No. Rapture can't go on like this, Di, my dear. This cannot go on." It didn't take long for her to make up her mind. It wasn't the whiskey, or the cigarettes, or that strong chin, or those frank brown eyes, or the pungent opinions. He was thinking about going back to her place alone, and waiting to hear from Andrew Ryan. No, never again. "Atlas," she said, "I'd like to help." "Why should I believe Ryan hasn't sent you on this slide like? Will you tell me that now?" "I'll show you I'm no spy. I'll do things you would never approve of, and then you'll know what you can trust me." Ryan Plasmids, 1959. The odd little chamber, partly cold, steel-walled lab and partly nursery, was chilly today. Drips of cold water slipped from a rusty bolt in the ceiling from a far corner. Bridget had told maintenance about the leak, but so far no one has come to fix it. Subject 15 didn't mind. The little girl played contentedly with the drip as Bridget watched. The girl seemed to delight in the tiny little invasion of the gigantic sea into her cell. Squatting in the corner, the child tried to catch every drop as it came down. She giggled when she caught one. Bridget sighed. The experiments had been going well. The attachment conditioning was working, but she felt heavier every day, as if she were carrying some hidden burden. She was beginning to feel like a big daddy herself, as if she too were sheathed in metal. That thought reminded Bridget. It was time. She went to the door, opened it, and took the remote control from her lab coat pocket and pointed to the device on the hulking gray metal figure waiting, dormant, in the corner. Somewhere inside that metal armor was what remained of a man who was now in a sort of comatose state, waiting for the stimuli to awaken, but never completely awaken. He would always be little more than a machine. She pressed the button on the remote, and the Big Daddy responded instantly, turning with a creak, coming with clanging steps onto the conditioning lab. "Oh," Subject 15 chirped, clasping her wet hands together with delight when she saw the Big Daddy. "Mr. Bubbles is here." Bridget Tenenbaum watched Subject 15 walk, almost like a sleepwalker, to the Big Daddy. The little girl clasped its metal hand and gazed up, smiling uncertainly. And suddenly, for the first time in many years, Bridget Tenenbaum remembered. She is a girl, once more, in Belarusia, watching the Nazis take her father away. It's before the war, but they are removing troublemakers. The Nazi officer in charge of the platoon turns his gray-eyed gaze on her. He's big, craggy-faced man wearing a helmet, his hands in heavy gloves. He wears boots. He glints with shiny buttons and medals. He says, "Little one, you can be of use. First in the kitchens working. In time you go to the camps. Experimental subjects are needed." He reaches out to her. She stares up at him, thinking he's more like a machine than a man. Her father took her to a silent movie, which she saw a man made of metal, stalking about. The officer is a man of metal in a uniform, metal clothed in flesh. She knows she'll never see her father again. She'll be alone, and this man is reaching out to her. Something closes up in her heart. She thinks, I must make friends with the metal men. She reaches out and clasps the gloved hand. And now in Rapture, Bridget Tenenbaum shuddered, remembering the little girl as she was, and the woman she became. Even before the day she'd been distant from people, she'd always had a hard time connecting, but she kept the door in herself open a crack. It was at that moment, clasping that officer's hand, that she closed the door that she always kept open for her family. She would simply survive. Now Bridget stood there, staring at Subject 15 and the model of the Big Daddy. Subject 15, another child conditioned to attach herself to a machine. Metal men, clothed in flesh. In Rapture, metal men enclosed in flesh. Subject 15 was a child, twisted, her childlike nature distorted for Rapture's purposes, a child so much like the little girl Bridget had been. Bridget shuddered. "Not this one," she whispered. "No more." She felt herself turned inside out as she said it. Feelings geysered up in her, seething in her heart. She was once more a child. She would become a mother. She would be a mother with many adopted children. She could no longer treat these children as experimental subjects. She went to the child and embraced her. "I am sorry," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry." Mercury Suites, 1959. What is the difference between a man and a parasite? The words came over the public address system, reverberating from the metal walls as Bill walked down the hall to Sullivan's place. A camera swiveled to watch him as he came. "A man builds," came Andrew Ryan's recorded voice. "A parasite asks, 'Where's my share?' A man creates. A parasite says, 'What will the neighbors think?' A man invents. A parasite says, 'Watch out or you might tread on the toes of God.'" Bill was beginning to think the parasite might be right about that last one. He knocked on the apartment door and Sullivan himself opened it. The security chief glanced past it to make sure he was alone, then nodded. "Come on in." Bill could smell the booze on Sullivan's breath, and the chief of security's gait was unsteady as he walked away from the door. Bill followed him and closed the door. Sullivan's place was laid out pretty much like his own, but it was sparer, bachelor furnishings. There was another feature, a good many dead soldiers, empty bottles on tables and desks, even the carpet. Sullivan sat on the sofa, shoving an entire bottle out of the way to put a tape recorder down on the coffee table. Bill sat beside him. To their left was a big picture window to the undersea scape. Building creaked in the current. A school of yellow-finned fish cruised by and suddenly changed direction, all of them at once darting away from the blinding lights with that mysterious unanimity they had. "Drink?" Sullivan asked, his voice lifeless. His eyes were red-rimmed. It looked like he hadn't slept in a while. It was early for Bill, not yet 5, but he didn't want to seem like he was judging Sullivan. "Just a finger or two of whatever's left in that bottle there, mate." Sullivan poured it in a glass and hadn't been clean in a long while, and Bill picked it up. "Saw the rush and words, Chief. Urgent notes from you popping out of the pneumo and all. I had to cut work early to get here on time." Sullivan turned to look at an unfinished red and black knitted blanket folded beside him on the sofa. He reached out with his free hand and caressed it, lips trembling. Then he tossed off his drink and put the glass down on the coffee table with a clack. "Ryan's starting his little propaganda campaign to make the Little Sisters thing seems all hunky-dory, using kids to farm parasites. That's gonna be hunky-dory with you, Bill?" "Christ, no, I don't like plasmids. Don't like 'em double when they get in that way. Ryan says it's only temporary. And what are you doing with the orphans anyway?" But he shook his head. "Can't go on forever. Things are falling apart, the city and the people. The whole place will come apart at the seams if we don't." He broke off, wondering suddenly if he was being a fool, talking something close to sedition in Ryan's chief of security. Was all this a setup? But Sullivan had always been unhappy with his job for a long time, and he made Bill a kind of confidant. He had to trust someone sometime, and he knew Chief Sullivan after all these years. Sullivan wasn't much of an actor, especially when he was drunk. This was for real. "It's already come apart at the seams, Bill," Sullivan said slurringly. "I have some recordings here. I'll put them all on one tape. They came from different times, different people." He pressed the play button on the tape recorder. "I want your opinions about this, Bill. I'm the only son of a bitch I trust in this waterlogged city." The tape recorder played a guitar strumming a mocking little tune, someone whistling along in the background. A gentle drum beat led the way to singing that Bill recognized as Anna Culpepper's voice. "Andrew Ryan drew us in, and Ryan locked us in, and Sandra Cohen kept us hypnotized. Andrew kept us in for all her whim, and Sandra Cohen kept us mesmerized. With silly songs and water drinks, and dancing, with silly blondes and makeup winks, and flouncing." It went on in that vein, in Culpepper's languid, teasing voice. When Sullivan hit pause, Bill shrugged and said, "What about it, Chief? I've heard this kind of daft thing before. She's swanned out of Ryan Industries and been hanging around McDonough's. If truth be told, drinking and trying to be clever with her friends, sniping at Ryan. Songs like that are right popular with some around Rapture, but they don't sing them too loud." Sullivan snorted. "You don't think he deserves punishment?" "Well, it's just a song, innit? Okay, how about this?" Sullivan started the tape again, and this time it was Anna Culpepper just talking. "Cohen's not a musician. He's Ryan's stable boy. Ryan's corrupt policies crap all over the place, and Cohen flutters around, clearing it up. But instead of using a shovel, like you would with a proper mule, Cohen tidies with a catchy melody and a clever turn of phrase. But no matter how nicely it sounds, he can't really do anything about the smell." He paused it again, poured himself another drink, and, voice slurring even more, asked, "What do you think about that one, huh?" "Oh, well, I have to admit it's pretty inflammatory like, Chief. Them arty types will talk and talk, and talk don't mean much." "You know, well, listen to this. This is one of the guys we had a raid recently. He ducked us, and I'm glad of it, between you and me, Bill. It's from before Fontaine went down." He hit play, and Bill heard a voice he thought was Peach Wilkins. "We all come there, figured we'd be part of Ryan's great chain. Turns out Ryan's chain's made of gold, and ours are the sort with big iron ball around your ankle. He's up in Fort Frolic banging fashion models, or down this dump yanking guts out of fish. Fontaine's promising something better." "Sounds like a Atlas rabble-rouser," Bill remarked. "Different voice, same ideas." "Now listen to this one, Bill," Sullivan said. "This is the same guy, but later on. Fontaine's putting the screws on us in double. He's squeezing us out of 80 points of our cut, with the threat of turning us into Ryan if we don't play ball. Son of a bitch. Sammy G comes and tells me he's thinking of going to the constable. The next day, Sammy G was found in a sack in the salt pond, and we got no choice here." He stopped the tape and poured himself another drink, swaying his seat. "See, Bill, you see?" "Not exactly, Chief." "See, the first they get pulled into Rapture, like you did, like I did, and they find out it's not all it's cracked out to be if they're not one of the big shots, and Fontaine drags them into his own little chain. They want out, and that turns bad too, and what happens? Some of them start turning up dead. So what can they do? They got stuck working for Fontaine, and what happens? Ryan sends us in to catch them, hang them for smuggling, or something they were trapped into." "I don't know if there was our only choice, Chief, but I see what you mean." "And then there's that Persephone." Bill winced. "I hate the thought of that place. Been afraid I'd end up there myself." "Lamb's taken over with the whole part of Rapture. Made Persephone her base. Who gave her that base? Ryan, too. Torturing people to find Lamb's followers. That's just create more followers for Lamb." "Torture? I never heard about that." "He didn't want you to know, Bill. To catch some of them, the Persephone Reds, the smugglers. Ryan not only used torture, he personally supervised the least session I know of, and what Pat Cantovich is doing the dirty work." "Torture?" Bill's stomach twisted at the thought. "You sure, Chief?" "Oh yeah, I had to clean up the mess. Oh, maybe they had it coming, maybe. Well, this girl, this Culpepper, all she did was bitch and moan, or sing if you want to call it that. Sang another funny, stupid little tune about that Looney Tune Senator Cohen. You want to know how much a Looney Tune is? Listen to this." He started the recorder playing once more. Senator Cohen's distinctly demented voice minced through the recitation. "The Wild Bunny by Senator Cohen. I want to take the ears off, but I can't. I hop, and when I hop, I never get off the ground. It's my curse, my eternal curse. I want to take the ears off, but I can't. It's my curse, my fucking curse. I want to take the ears off. Please take them off. Please." "Right," Bill said when it ended. "You already knew the bloke was eccentric, Chief." "Eccentric? He's a murderer. Gone nuts on Adam. Kills people for fun over that Fleet Hall. Pastes their bodies up with cement. Leaves them into statues for display in his back room." Bill started. "You're pulling my leg." No, I'm not. I'd like to lock him up, but Ryan insists Cohen's an ally." He shook his head miserably. "Ryan's protecting him?" Cohen whined about Culpepper's songs making fun of him. since they were subject to Ryan's to ridicule too. Sent over tapes of it. Ryan went a bit mad himself. Not taking Madam, is he? Ryan? No, he's getting to the gin. Stays cool sometimes, paranoid at other times. 2 days sober, 1 half drunk. Not a good pattern. I know it too well. Bill licked his lips. His mouth was suddenly dry. No excuse for protecting Cohen, really, if he is a murderer. He took a long pull of the whiskey Sullivan had given him and scarcely tasted it. So me having to protect that little prick Cohen, Sullivan growled. That extends to Ryan giving me orders to... His voice broke. He reached over and pulled the red and black knit blanket, clutched it to his chest. Pretty, isn't it? When I was done with her, I left her as she was, in the bathroom, naked in the tub. Bill stared. What do you mean? When you were done with her? Sullivan closed his eyes, clutching the blanket to him, the sudden motion spilling his drink on his lap. I seen she had a half-knitted blanket by her bed. It was nice, you know. Black and red, real pretty, so I took it. Just didn't seem right to leave it lying there, all by itself. Bill finished his drink, thought maybe he could get out of here, while Sullivan let him, but at last he asked, Chief, are you saying that Ryan sent you to kill Anna Culpepper? Sullivan looked at the blanket. After a long moment he nodded. In her bath, pushed her under the water. Her eyes, Bill, her eyes staring at me through the water, as I held her under when the bubbles come up. I was thinking, there goes her life, you know. Her life all bubbling up from her mouth, just like the bubbles that come up outside that window. See 'em? Oh, Jesus, Chief, that's... Bill took a long, deep, ragged breath, not sure what to say. He almost felt like he ought to comfort Sullivan. Sorry you went through that, but you couldn't say that to a murderer. Chief, I've got to get back to my wife. It's too late to do anything about it. I have to let it go. I want you to know it's all safe with me, mate. What you said. I can't let it go, Sullivan said, his eyes closed, his voice barely audible. I'm going to Neptune's bounty, find a soft spot, and... Bill got up, backed away from him, then he hurried to the door and left without another word. Ryan Plasmids, 1959. Fully dressed, Bridget Tenenbaum lay on her cot, staring at the steel wall. She knew she would not sleep that night. She kept seeing their faces, gazing up at the metal men adoringly. The little sisters, their large, dark, trusting eyes, she could not bear it anymore, and the way they would lovingly climb into her lap, the cruelty of their innocence. She must act. She must find relief. She could run away, hide alone in some corner of Rapture. There was that old maintenance dorm she'd found, but hiding there alone wouldn't work. Their eyes, their faces would pursue her. There'd be no hiding from them. No, the only way was to set them free from this place. Then she would no longer feel their pain. Their release would be hers. Now was as good a time as any. The sentries had been gathering out front late at night. It would be necessary to shut off the cameras and bots, but she knew just how to do that. She would find some way to get past the fourth man later. Perhaps she might have to kill him. Bridget reached under her bunk and found a bottle of vodka. She'd bought it from Karlowski, but it hadn't been really helped smother the cruel feelings of caring for the children that had risen in her. She'd given up after half a bottle, which left half a bottle left. She opened the labelless bottle, took a mouthful, swished it around, and spat out onto her lab coat. She got her keys from the hook on the wall and then went out into the hallway. A security camera swiveled toward her and sent a bot from its cabinet to look at her. He registered her DNA detection flasher, circled her once, then rolled back to its container. She kept on down the hallway and made a stop at Lab 16, then came back into the corridor and stopped dead. 2 sentries were scowling at her, blocking the way with shotguns in their hands. The tall, sallow-faced guard in the overalls was a Rolf. She didn't know the squat one with the bad teeth. He had a constable badge pinned upside down on an old military coat. What are you doing wandering round? This ain't your work time, lady, Rolf asked, squinting at her suspiciously. Bridget blinked at them, swaying in what she hoped was a good simulation of drunkenness. Could not sleep, lonely, thinking maybe I would make myself pretty visit you. Maybe I will take a shower, yes. Maybe you'll join me in the shower, huh? Rolf's mouth dropped open. Nothing had ever surprised him more, but she could see he wanted to believe it. A short one scratched his matted hair. Well, now, you mean just Rolf here? Oh no, plenty of room for everyone. We take turns, yes? Pretending to swig the vodka, she turned to point at the showers at the far end of the hall. She turned back, grinning at them with bleary inebriation. You take bottle and wait here. I will make myself pretty. Oh no, too many cameras, Rolf began. If someone checks, I will turn them off, Bridget insisted, waving the problem away. It's nothing. What's going on down here? Called a red-headed man with a Tommy gun in one hand and a flashlight in the other. He came stalking down the hall, lower lip thrusting out disapprovingly, but his expression changed, became sheer lust when she saw the bottle in her hand, not lust for her. Is that wine? Bridget shook her head. No, much stronger. You want? She thrust the bottle into his grasp. You'll take the vodka to shower. I will take care of cameras. Who can share with these boys, yes? We have a small party. She wagged a finger at them. You must not be naughty boys and shower. She turned away, laughing, and staggered away in the direction of the auto security control panels. She heard them walking off, muttering toward the showers, Rolf saying, I don't know, maybe just a drink or two, but there's no way we... She used the combination lock, switched off the security cameras and bots, and went to check the showers. It was already done. The overwhelming dose of sleeping powder she put in the vodka had done its work, and quickly. All 3 sentries were sprawled, snoring on the floor. She unloaded 2 of the shotguns, taking the shells, then carried the 3rd shotgun away with her. She got the leather tote bag she needed, with the equipment for removing the sea slugs and some canned food. She stuffed it all in the bag. The purging device would cause the sea slugs to disintegrate inside the children. They would vomit up the remains. Bridget hurried down the dimly lit hall to the row of children's cells. She leaned the shotgun against the wall before she let the little girls out, not wanting to scare them. She put a finger to her lips to signify quiet as she let each one out and winked. Now, children, she whispered as they gathered around with her, a diminutive crowd. We will play a game of quiet, like hide and seek. We will get the other girls and then... Someone's coming, said one of the mop-bits. Bridget hearing the heavy footsteps then, probably the 4th sentry who stood out in the hallway. Hey, system's down, he called from around the corner of the corridor. Children, we will go back into this nursery together, all of us. We will wait till he goes by. We will trick him. The children giggled mischievously, and she hushed them, herding them to the nursery cell. One of them lay on the cot, pretending to be asleep. The others pressed into a corner near the door, squatting in excited silence with Bridget. A few moments more, they heard a guard striding by. Rolf, the man called. Where the hell you got to? System's down. Christ, if the splicers got in. Bridget and the little sisters waited another long, slow minute. She guessed it'd be 2 or 3 minutes before the 4th sentry found the others sleeping in the showers. There's no time to get any more children out. They were far down the hallway. She'd lose the ones she'd had if she tried. Heart pounding, Bridget stood up and whispered, We must go like ghosts, quiet as ghosts. Ghosts aren't so quiet, a black-haired little sister remarked, twirling the ends of her hair around a finger. I hear them talking all the time. Then be quieter than ghosts. Come on. Bridget opened the door and they tiptoed through. She herded them round the hallway corner toward the front door of the facility. They were almost running when they reached the outer corridor. The cameras out there were still angling inertly down, but that wouldn't last. They got across the anteroom to the metro just as the alarms went off behind them, but she managed to get all the little sisters with her into the bathysphere. She knew an abandoned dorm that might do for a safe house. It was a dusty place, almost forgotten now, in a basement corner of the city. There she could clear the sea slugs from the children, give them a chance to be human beings. They would lose something, but they would gain much more. And perhaps the cruelty of her maternal instinct would transmute. The pain would become joy. Rapture's Central Control, Ryan's office, 1959. Andrew Ryan hit the record button on the AccuVox and cleared his throat. I'm told that Lamb has been seen in the streets, come out of her sanctum in Persephone. Rapture is split up between our territories. The Atlas Turf, the Lamb's little group of psychos, and my city is schismed. He sighed. One of the Alpha series was killed in the incident, and this bonded sister stolen. But but the Council has no time for a manhunt. Atlas swells the ranks of its marauders by the day. Regardless, Lamb's name has already faded among the people. She's no more than a ghost who has forgotten to die. A chime became on his desk. He heard Karlowski's voice over the intercom. Plus, Dr. Suchong is here. Ryan switched off the tape recorder. Very good. Send him in. He opened the desk drawer, drew out a folder containing Suchong's proposal, and scanned it again as the doctor came paddling in. Ryan was distinctly aware of Suchong bowing. Yes, sit down. He heard the squeak of Suchong sitting in the chair and went on. I've looked over this little plan of yours. Frankly, Dr. Suchong, I'm shocked by your proposal. Ryan glanced up from the folder, tented his fingers, closed his eyes, as if considering the idea of objectively, though in fact he'd already made up his mind. If we were to modify the structure of our commercial plasmid line as you propose to make the user vulnerable to mental suggestion, would we not be able to effectively control the actions of the citizens of Rapture? Free will is the cornerstone of this city. The thought of sacrificing it is abhorrent. Suchong, sitting across from Ryan, nodded, somehow conveying apology, disappointing Ryan by acquiescing. He'd hoped Suchong would talk him into it. Ryan cleared his throat. However, we are indeed in a time of war. If Atlas and his bandits have their way, will they not turn us into slaves? And what would become of free will then? Desperate times call for desperate measures. And after all, if you say Fontaine knew of this sort of thing, then it would be working its way to Atlas. We can't let them get an edge on us, Suchong. Suchong looked at him attentively. Then you approve Suchong's plan? They can proceed with pheromone conditioning? If you can guarantee the splicers respond to me, no one else? Suchong was for Ryan. I will see to it. And what does Tenenbaum think? Does she think there might be a means to block this hormonal control? Suchong shrugged. Suchong think not, but not sure where she is. Cannot ask. What? Why not? You do not know? I assume the guards reported to you. She is gone, hiding somewhere in Rapture. Took little sisters with her. No one told me this. Ryan laughed softly, bitterly. Who got to Tenenbaum? Was she paid to do this? By Atlas? Something bothered her for a long time, Mr. Ryan. Had an attack of conscience, has she? Suchong blinked, not knowing what he meant. The English word conscience was one he hadn't bothered to learn. She is troubled female. She says they are harming children, even though we give them immortality. We give them power to always heal. This is harming? Suchong does not think so. Ryan picked up a pencil and flipped it from finger to finger. He was not convinced the little sisters were happy little elves working away for Rapture. But he was convinced that Adam was Rapture's edge in the outside world. Suppose they were ever invaded, KGB, CIA, some other insidious intelligence lurkers would infiltrate. Perhaps this new, pernicious influence, this Atlas, would bring them, or some of Lamb's treacherous bunch, who could have been KGB agent all along. If they were invaded by the Soviets or the Brits or the USA, then what? Only the extraordinary abilities provided by plasmids could protect Rapture from outsiders. So Adam must go on. He needed the little sisters more than ever. If she took any little sisters with her, plasmid production would be drastically undercut. Yes, Suchong smoothed his greased back hair thoughtfully. We will need more little sisters. Well, there's no time to wait for more people to... Ryan cleared his throat. I'll tell Kandovich to see to it we have a few more until something else is worked out. Ryan tossed the pencil on the desk. As for Bridget Tenenbaum, we shall find her. If you betray me, Doctor, I warn you, things will not go well. Suchong smiled sadly. I would not respect you if that were not the case, Mr. Ryan. Suchong bowed. Then he hurried to the door and bent on his mission. The whisking sound, and Ryan turned to see a small package arrive for him in the pneumatic tube. The handwriting told him it was from Sullivan. He removed it from the tube and opened it. It contained a reel of recording tape and a note in Sullivan's hand. Don't think you'll see me alive again, sir. I plan a quick get-together with a bullet. Can't live with what I've done. She had the cutest little red and black blanket. Here's a tape. Might clue you in on why Jasmine Jolie moved out. Why she's been ducking you. Owe you that, I guess. Great man. Now I owe myself something else. A little drinky, a little bye-bye. Bye-bye, great man. Ryan stared at the note, then looked at the tape. He was strangely reluctant to listen to it. At last he put the tape player and pressed play. Chapter 19, Arcadia, Rapture, 1959. I just don't feel comfortable in this park anymore, Bill, Elaine said. Bodyguards or not. She and Bill stood on the little bridge, watching reflected light play in the stream. The cryptic pagan graffiti of the Saturn cult marked the wood of the little fort bridge. They'd seen bullets lying about in the grass, and Adam's syringes. Bill nodded. Does seem daft coming here. Suppose she steps on one of those syringes. All that do to her. Elaine put her hand on her mouth. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. But she and Mashka are all a rider about that coming here, love. He slipped his arm around her shoulders. A few minutes more and we'll go home, huh? He glanced over his shoulder, saw Constable Redgrave and Karlowski taking a few strides away, each in with a shotgun and a pistol. The little girls who were playing with the little wooden dolls Sam Lutz had made them over by a boulder, close to sliding Japanese-style doors about 50 feet away. Drumming up propellers caught his attention, and he looked up to see a security bot fly overhead. It whined past, watching for splicers. Arcadia had been cleared of splicers and rebels, at least for the time being. Bill had requested a day with his family in the park, and Ryan had seen to it. I just have the worst feeling, Bill, Elaine whispered. Bill sighed, wanting a cigarette. Real tobacco was in short supply. I know you're right. I'm going to get us out of here. Bill, Redgrave called, worry in his voice. Karlowski was already hurrying toward the boulder where the girls had been. They were gone. Sophie! Bill shouted. He found himself running after Karlowski. Redgrave, keep a line here. That door, Karlowski puffed. Bill saw it then. The sliding door was open, and the girls were nowhere to be seen. His daughter was gone. And then there she was, Sophie, slipping through it, alone, tears in her eyes. Daddy! Karlowski ran through the door, calling, Moshka, hey kid, where'd you go? Bill ran to Sophie, swept up in her arms. Quiet, I was worried, love. Don't run off like that. Where's Moshka? We heard someone calling us from the tea room. We went through the door, but it was someone I don't know, a big man. He said he had to go with him, for Rapture. What? Still holding her, Bill stepped through the door and saw no one except Karlowski coming back, frowning. Karlowski shook his head at them. They were golden. But there was Mashka's doll lying on the floor. Its head was snapped off. Bill put Sophie down, placed his hands on her shoulders, and looked tenderly into her eyes. Did he hurt you, love? Bill asked, heart sinking as he thought about the poor Mashka. Her lips quivered. I pulled at his arm, and he pushed me down, and I ran away. Then she burst into tears. Elaine rushed up then, crushing Sophie to her, tears of mother and daughter running together. Redgrave was close behind her. He'd been watching her back. Bill, where's the other one? Redgrave asked, looking round. Some bastard took her. He stepped up to Karlowski, drew him aside. You see anything? Yet, but I think I heard Kandvish back there. Kandvish? I've got to get my wife and girl back to our place. You and Redgrave can see if I can find Mashka, will you? I'll try, but... Karlowski shook his head. Not much hope. It seemed to Bill that those 3 words summed it all up. Fort Frolic, Rapture, 1959. My daddy's smarter than Einstein, stronger than Hercules, lights a fire with a snap of his finger. Are you as good as my daddy, mister? Not if you don't visit the Gatherer's Garden. You aren't. Smart daddies get spliced at the garden. The automated voice at the Gatherer's Garden machine, near the entrance to the strip joint where Jasmine worked, seemed to be speaking directly to Andrew Ryan, as if teasing him, mocking him. He ignored it, as well as the startled man taking tickets at the door. He rushed into the strip club, disregarding the swaying woman on the stage. He beelined right to that backstage door he'd been so familiar with before he'd gotten Jasmine into her luxury apartment. He should have taken her in hand, forced it out of her, not gotten so caught up in other things. But too late. He kept hearing the tape over and over in his head. That creepy Tenenbaum promised me it wasn't going to be a real pregnancy. He'd just take the egg out once Mr. Ryan I had. I need the money so bad, but I know Mr. Ryan's going to suss it out. Gonna know I wasn't being careful. Gonna know I sold his child. He slammed into the back hallway, down the hall, into the bedroom where the strippers did their extra shows for special customers. There she was, barely dressed, yawning on the wrinkled bedclothes. Jasmine Jolene, looking sleepy, pretending all was right with them when she saw him come in, pretending that she was glad to see him. I thought you'd forgotten about me, she squeaked, forgetting her elocution lessons in her fear. But I'm so glad you didn't. You sold my child to Tenenbaum? To Fontaine? She scrambled away from him. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan. I didn't know Fontaine had something to do with it. He couldn't bear to hear the lies coming out of that pretty mouth. He lunged at her, closed his hands over her soft neck. What are you doing? She gasped. No, don't, please. I love you. Don't. She tried to say something else, but it was cut off, squeezed off by the inexorable pressure of his fingers tightening on her throat. Tighter, squeezing even tighter, till her pretty eyes fairly popped out of her head. Farmer's Market, 1959. A security bot whirled by overhead, making that irritating whistling noise. Ryan and Bill, walking with their escort, glanced up at the bot as it whizzed by, Bill ducking. He looked over at Elaine and Sophie, browsing together on the other side of the open stall market. The pale, frightened little man standing behind the hydroponic vegetables rack gave him a hesitant smile. Bill glanced up at another sound, the big security camera above the fruit booth, whirling in its red pool of light to take him in. He wore his ID flasher, so he decided not to tell one of the turrets or bots to kill him. This was no place to raise a child, especially when they might come across a dead body at any moment. But Ryan insisted that life go on with such normality as possible, and he'd pressured Bill to bring his family out on this walk today. Come along, Bill, Ryan had said. Bill had said, I'll get the missus and the squeaker. But it had taken a lot of talking to get Elaine out of the house with Sophie. They had Redgrave and Karlowski in front of them, Lenoski and Kandavish, each one of them with a machine gun in his hands. Andrew Ryan was the only one without a gun. Ryan carried that fancy walking stick now. Or with him getting a bit long in the tooth, he still looked natty, confident, a bit grim but not too worried. A lot of men had died in the last few days. Skirmishes were popping up all over Rapture. It was a guerrilla war, but it was war. Bill had nearly left Ryan Industries after a takeover of Fontaine Futuristics. It had been a blow, Ryan nationalizing an industry. A pure hypocrisy. And before that, Persephone. Then Sullivan telling him what Ryan had been up to, behind the scenes, torture, and having Anna Culpepper killed. But the final camel-busting straw was the disappearance of Mashka. He'd asked Ryan about it, and Kandavish. Ryan had said he could not be bothered with every petty crime around Rapture, and Kandavish had said, You deal with the plumbing, we'll deal with security, now fuck off. And that was it. He decided right then, walking away from Kandavish's office, he was getting his family out of Rapture. It was just a question of choosing his moment. He had a half-formed plan. Roland Wallace wanted out too. They talked it over. Wallace was authorized to pass through the external access airlock. There was a mini-sub in Bay 2. Wallace could pretend to be doing repairs on it, then slip out with it through the airlock to the open sea. Wallace would get a little sub to one of the old sentry launches, still tied up behind the lighthouse, and bring the launch around to its entrance. Bill could get his family out to the lighthouse, which had a single cable for its cameras and turrets. He could unhook that cable. If the camera were out, the security bots wouldn't be activated when he approached the lighthouse shaft. No one but Ryan was genetically authorized to be up there. The bots would attack anyone else. The water was rough over Rapture. They'd have to wait on the escape, wait for better weather in late spring. Fewer icefalls. Then they'd escape, take the launch to sea routes, ride the currents, and flag down a passing ship. If they could get through the lighthouse at all. Not only was Ryan's security in the way, there were rebels and rogue splicers. Atlas now controlled about 40% of Rapture, including Apollo Square, Artemis Suites, and Neptune's Bounty, his strongholds. Lamb was mostly tied up around Persephone and Dionysus Park. They'd all have to be skirted. Bill thought about trying to make some kind of deal on the sly with Atlas, but he knew he couldn't be trusted. As if reading his thoughts, PA system hissed with static, whined with feedback, then a woman's voice announced, "Atlas is a friend of the parasite. Don't be a friend of Atlas. Ignore the lies of Atlas and his parasites. Rapture is on the rise." Another hiss of static began. "We all have bills to pay, and the temptation to break curfew to make a little extra item forgivable. Breaking the curfew is not. Stay on the level and stay out of trouble." A whine of feedback, and then, "Wanting an item from the surface is forgivable. Buying or smuggling one into Rapture is not. Attention, a new curfew will be enacted on Thursday. Citizens found in violation will be relocated. The parasite has an eye on Rapture. Keep your eye on the parasite." Bill pretended an interest in the grain-based meat at the farmer's market butcher's stall. But this mind was full of questions. Could he and his family really escape from Rapture? Was it possible while this war was going on? Probably too dangerous to try. There was one other possibility, having a couple too many glasses of Worley's brandy. He even recorded that possibility into an audio diary. "I don't know if killing Mr. Ryan will stop the war, but I know it won't stop what a man breathes. I love Mr. Ryan, but I love Rapture. If I have to kill one to save the others, then so be it." He had to erase that tape immediately. He'd be dead man if someone found it. "Seen Diane lately?" Ryan asked too casually as he picked up a rather withered apple from his stand. He smelled it, made a face, and pointed it back. "Diane McClintock? No gov, not in person, like. Last I seen her, she was at that Dr. Steinman did some work on her." "He's working on her in more ways than one, Bill. Your delicacy is appreciated. Yes, I was actually quite bored with her, and she became very narcissistically tiresome after New Year's Eve attack. Whining over her scars, went gadding about with Steinman, but he's thrown her over, I understand. Last I knew, she was spending a lot of time gambling in Fort Frolic." The security bot flew past again. It was on watchful patrol status in order to protect Ryan, and Bill noticed little Sophie watching him with her big eyes, frightened of the thing that was supposed to be protecting her. Sophie saw him looking at her and came rushing to him, throwing her little arms around his waist. Elaine followed with a strained smile and nodding to Ryan. Ryan looked down at Sophie and smiled, patting her on the head. She shrank away from him. Ryan looked startled at that. Then came a sad, low-pitched groaning noise and an ominous vibration of heavy footsteps. They turned to see the hulking, plodding, clanking form of a Big Daddy. There were at present two models of Big Daddy, the Rosies and the Bouncers. This one, a bouncer, made a drawn-out moaning sound as it came, almost as if in mourning. They all did that, of course. They all smelled rancid, like dead things. The bouncer was carrying an oversized drill bit in its right arm. On its back was a heavy power pack. To Bill, the Big Daddies almost looked like pictures of robots he'd seen in the covers of pulp science fiction magazines. But he knew there was most of a human being inside the Big Daddy's suit. Some poor blighter who had been caught breaking a rule. Sometimes a criminal, sometimes a land follower, sometimes just a hungry man who'd stolen an apple. The constables tranquilized candidates for Big Daddies and took them to Prometheus Point, where their flesh was fused with metal, their brains altered and conditioned to focus on protecting the little sisters and on killing anything they perceived as a threat. When the Big Daddies were damaged, repair parts were scavenged on the sly from the Eternal Flame crematorium, who was going to miss a leg or an arm when the rest had to be cremated. All over the massive Big Daddy's red, great round metal head were circular glowing sensors. Its huge metal-encased legs clunked along relentlessly, but careful never to injure the barefoot, grubby little tyke of a girl who scampered along beside it. Gatherers, some called the girl. This one was tiny and fragile compared to the Big Daddy, but she dominated it completely. The little sister wore a dirty pink smock. Her face seemed faintly greenish, her eyes sunken, but it was a distance in those eyes, like something Bill had seen in Bridget Tenenbaum's, as if her peculiar aloofness had installed in their creation. "Come on, Mr. Bubbles," the little sister fluted, calling to the Big Daddy. "Come on or we'll miss the angels." The towering muck of a deep sea diver lumbered after her, moaning. "Oh, Christ," Bill muttered. A dark-haired little sister skipped past him. Mashka! Sophie called out. The gatherer stopped, blinking, mouth open to an O, to look at Sophie for a long, puzzled moment, then said, "What is that one? That's not a gatherer, and she's not an angel yet. I can't play with her until she's an angel." Then the little girl danced away. The big daddy gave out its long, mournful groan and clumped on after her. The floor shook with the creatures going. "Oh God, Bill," Elaine said, hugging Sophie to her. "Was that—" "No," he said quickly. "Not sure it was her." He doubted she'd believed the lie. Bill was just grateful that Sophie hadn't seen what was left of her friend Mashka sticking a syringe into a dead body, drawing out the pulsing red effluvium of living Adam. A sickening sight. It seemed to belong to Rapture, that way giant pink elephants belong to hallucinating drunks. The public address chose that moment to inform them. "The Little Sisters Orphanage. In troubled times, give your little girl the life she deserves. Boarding and education free of charge. After all, children are the future of Rapture." Bill noticed Ryan was staring down at Sophie. Olympus Heights, 1959. Feeling weary, deeply weary, and yet restless too, Andrew Ryan poured himself a martini from the silver shaker and settled back in his easy chair at the picture window, gazing out over the shimmering skyline of the submerged city. "I'm getting old," he thought. "The city should still be young, yet it seems to be aging right along with me." A couple of squid rippled by, outlined against the glow, and then they were gone. The neon signs for Rapture businesses were flickering, threatening to go out. Some of the lights supposed to shine up from the bases of the buildings were dark, but most of the lights still worked. The city of Rapture continued to glow. The city itself was showing signs of new life. There were the new circus of values machines, expected to raise a great deal of revenue. There were the Gatherer's Gardens, too. Scientists were working on machines that could raise a man from the dead, if he hadn't been dead long, and restore him to life. Sure, the population of Rapture was depleted, but when he completed his control of Adam and the Splicers and rid the city of the rebels, he could build Rapture up anew. He sipped the martini, put it on the end of the table beside the tape recorder, then pressed record for his audio diary. History must have its due. "On my walk today I had an encounter with a pair of them. He, a lumbering palooka with a foul-smelling diving suit, and she, an unwashed moppet in a filthy pink smock. Her pallor was off, green and morbid. There was a rather unpleasant aspect to her demeanor, as if she were in an altogether different place than the rest of us. I understand the need for such creatures. I just wish I could make them more presentable." He chuckled to himself at that, took a sip of his martini and made another diary entry. "Could I have made mistakes? One does not build cities if one is guided by doubt. But can one govern in absolute certainty? I know that my beliefs have elevated me, just as I know that the things I've rejected would have destroyed me." On one of the buildings outside, a light flickered and went out. He sighed. "But the city, it's collapsing before my—" He hesitated, not able to finish the thought. It was unbearable. Have I become so convinced at my own beliefs that I have stopped seeing the truth? But Atlas is out there, and he aims to destroy me. To question is to surrender. No, I will not surrender." The letter arrived in a pneumatic tube. Ryan heard the distinctive swish of its arrival. He got wearily up, fetched the message, and got back to his easy chair. Grunting as he sat, he fumbled it open. He was losing some dexterity in his fingers. He unfolded the letter and recognized Diane McClintock's handwriting. "Dear Andre Ryanovsky, Andrew Ryan, Mr. Ryan, the lover, the tycoon, the tyrant. Just 3 of the many sides of you. I only saw the cold side recently. First you didn't show up to New Year's Eve, and I had to face rogue splicers without you. Then you didn't show up when I was recovering from surgery. You stood me up in Fort Frolic. You had a meeting, so I decided to go home. Tried to go the short route. Apollo Square was blocked off, taken over by the rebels, and I was a bit drunk and angry, and I wanted to confront them for the damage they'd done me. Maybe I wanted them to kill me, just get it over with. A woman tried to escape to get past Ryan's guards keeping the rebels in Apollo Square, and one of your pet splicers pointed his finger at her. She burst into flames. I had heard about Atlas, but it occurred to me I'd only had your side of it, so I thought they were either going to kill me or explain themselves to me. I bribed a guard at the gate into letting me through. Conditions are terrible in Apollo Square and Artemis. The crowding, the squalor. They say it was almost as bad before the revolution. They say it was your doing, your neglect. Graffiti's painted on the walls. Atlas lives. What do I really know about Atlas? At last someone took me to meet him. They know I'm your mistress, or was, but they have learned to trust me. Atlas was surprisingly humble. I asked him if he could lead the people in some kind of uprising against you. He said, I am not a liberator. Liberators do not exist. These people will liberate themselves. Isn't that strange? It's almost like something you would say. But when he said it, I understood. It meant something. It went right to the heart of me, Andre. I thought you were a great man. I was wrong. Atlas is a great man. I will serve him. I'll struggle beside him, fighting all you represent. I'm going on a raid tomorrow to get weapons and food. I will learn to fight, Andre. You abandoned me. Now I have left you. I have left you for Atlas and the revolution. Diane. Ryan folded the paper up and tore it into small bits. He let the shreds of paper flutter to the floor, picked up his martini, and suddenly lost control of himself, throwing the glass so that it smashed on the big picture window, fragments of wet, broken glass sliding down over the glowing spires of the city. Thank you. That was part 15 of Bioshock Rapture. Thank you for listening, and good night.